Hi there, I'm Mrs. Smith and I'm from Essex Primary School in Manor Park. It's great to be with you today for this Year 4 grammar lesson looking at the difference between direct and indirect speech. Like many of you Year 4 Potterheads, I like to keep in touch with everything that's going on in the wizarding world by reading the Daily Prophet. It gets delivered to my classroom every morning, which is a bit strange because I thought it's only supposed to be for wizards and witches. Anyway, it'll come in handy for today's learning session because it's very common to see both direct and indirect speech, which can also be called reported speech, when you're reading a newspaper report. Within writing, there are two ways of recording speech or what someone has said. Direct speech is when the exact words of the speaker are narrated or written within speech marks, which are also known as quotation marks or inverted commas. For example, in this week's Daily Prophet, there's a story about a dragon loose over London. BTW, did you see it fly over Wanstead Flats last week? Anyway, the article reports that one of the hysterical muggles, that's what witches and wizards call people who don't do magic, said it was so scary. I mean dragons, they're not supposed to be real. I thought it was going to eat me or set me on fire. In this extract, the actual words of the eyewitness are written down. We can easily identify that this is direct speech because we can see the speech marks demarcating spoken words. News reporters often use a person's exact words to represent their ideas and the way they are being said accurately. To write this account of the dragon sighting as an indirect speech sentence, we would report the general points of what has been said without actually writing the exact words out in full. That's why it's sometimes called reported speech. A terrified muggle said they thought dragons weren't real and that they feared they would be eaten or set on fire. Knowing and understanding the difference between direct and indirect speech is especially important in identifying what could be fake news. Whilst both forms should accurately record what has been said, direct speech represents a person's exact words, whereas they're changed in reported speech. So when this happens, there's a possibility of misrepresentation. That's why so many celebrities, politicians, and world leaders are using social media to speak directly to their audience. When writing for fiction, however, recording every word of what is said can make writing very boring and full of unnecessary details that don't move your story on. To tell our audience or readers that someone has said something, we need to give this information: who said it, what they said, and sometimes how they spoke or what they were doing at the time. This is the case whether you're using direct or indirect speech. The difference is all in the punctuation. For those of you studying Red Belt Kung Fu punctuation, hey! Quotation marks are the immediate way to identify direct speech. That's because the exact words of the speaker are shown within quotation marks. For example, the dragon is leaving obvious carnage and destruction behind it. We are on its trail and confident we will be able to find it soon. The next and easy thing to remember is that the first word of speech after the first or opening speech mark has a capital letter always. Yes, always. Even if it's not the start of a sentence. A spokesperson for the Ministry of Magical Creatures commented, "There's only so many places a dragon could be. We're hoping it's gone south, away from Muggle inhabitants." Notice that the punctuation at the end of what is said comes before the closing speech marks, which show that the talking or speech is finished. The one last thing to remember is that if a new person is talking, you need to start a new line every time the person who is speaking changes. Remember, new speaker, new line. The Mayor of Newham advised residents living close to Wanstead Flats. If you can stay at home, you should. We are making every effort to return this dangerous beast to the magical world. So, when writing direct speech, you need to remember quotation marks, talking, 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 a piece of punctuation, quotation marks. Narration about who said it can go before, after, or amongst the speaker's actual words. If you can stay at home, you should, advised the Mayor of Newham. We are making every effort to return this dangerous beast to the magical world. Let's look at indirect speech or reported speech now. It's easy to spot the difference between direct and indirect speech because indirect or reported speech does not include speech marks. It's as simple as that. The tricky part is when and how to write it. We usually use indirect speech if we don't want or need to say the person's exact words. It can sound a little more formal, it's less immediate, but can make a change from dialogue when you're telling or writing a story. To write a speech sentence using reported or indirect speech, you usually start by saying who spoke and how they spoke. This can sometimes be done with a good verb choice, so it's important to know lots of different verbs to use instead of said. For example, whispered, shouted, laughed, cried. The verb is usually followed by that, but it's not always necessary. And then it gets a little trickier. If I were to change the speech sentence, I'm scared, said a Muggle. We were playing football when a huge dragon appeared, breathing giant fireballs at us, into indirect speech, I need to make some important changes. First up, I need to change the word order because reported speech usually begins with who is talking. Then I change the pronoun I to he. I've changed the verb tense too. I'm scared present tense, said a Muggle. A Muggle said that he was, past tense, scared. To complete the sentence in reported speech, I've added an adverb time phrase to give more information about what has been said to say when it happened. A Muggle said that he was scared when a huge dragon appeared breathing giant fireballs whilst he was playing football with his friends yesterday evening. To sum up, in direct speech, the exact words of the speaker are enclosed in inverted commas, speech marks. The exact words of the speaker are quoted with no changes to their content or order. The correct punctuation is used before the inverted commas close. There is often a reporting clause to explain who said the speech. Sometimes the reporting clause can be extended with an adverb, subordinate clause or prepositional phrase to explain more about how, where or when the speech was said. The reporting clause can appear before or after the spoken words themselves. In reported or indirect speech, no inverted commas, speech marks are used. The exact words of the speaker are often changed. The spoken words need to be in the correct tense. Extra words may need to be added. So let's have a go at spotting whether this speech sentence is direct or reported speech. J.K. Rowling said that Hogwarts was a huge, rambling, quite scary-looking castle with a jumble of towers and battlements. That's right. There are no speech marks, so it can't be direct speech. It must be reported speech. So, now let's have a go at changing it into direct speech. Find the words that might have been spoken. To do this, you need to imagine you are the person talking. So what do you think J.K. Rowling, who is the author of the Harry Potter books, actually said about Hogwarts? Perhaps she said, Hogwarts is a huge, rambling, quite scary-looking castle with a jumble of towers and battlements. How do we show that these words are her words? That's right, we use speech marks before and after what is said. What do we need to remember to do to the first word inside the speech marks? Yes, that's right, we need to capitalise it. Remember, narration about who said it can go before, after, or amongst the speaker's actual words. So I've chosen to put it in the middle. Hogwarts is a huge, rambling, quite scary-looking castle, said J.K. Rowling, with a jumble of towers and battlements. Let's have a look at another speech sentence from when Harry arrived at Hogwarts for his first day at wizard school. It's true then, what they were saying on the train, Harry Potter has come to Hogwarts, declares Draco Malfoy. What tells you whether it's direct or indirect speech? That's right, the speech marks show the words spoken by the character Draco Malfoy. So it is direct speech. When you use direct speech in your writing, try to use a variety of synonyms for said. Now you're ready to write some dynamic dialogue to bring some more Harry Potter moments to life. First, imagine what the characters might be saying, then use direct speech to write it down. Finally, try turning your direct speech into reported speech. Why not add an adverb or phrase to explain how, when, or where the speech was said? You need to pause this video now and have a go yourself. Well done for completing your task. I'm sure your teachers will want to see your work. If you'd like a further challenge, see how many synonyms of said you can think of in just 1 minute. You might also like to read one of the Harry Potter stories and see how the writer J.K. Rowling uses direct and indirect speech. I'm Mrs. Smith from Essex Primary School, and I'm just going to catch up with everything that's going on in the Daily Prophet. Bye for now.